world that from the very first moment is telling us how to behave. From our initial breath, we are conditioned and molded into a way of being, often pulled one way or another. As we journey through our lives, we are subject to daily stress and the pressures of expectation and responsibility. We can become anxious and fearful, often dwelling in the past or worrying about the future, rarely enjoying the present. How can we learn to lead a more peaceful life? How can we remain in alignment when tossed and turned by the unpredictable nature of life's challenges? And how can we take ownership of our lives? In today's world of increasing complexity and uncertainty, where technology is replacing human connection, we learn from the age-old practice of mindfulness how to remain fully engaged in the present moment. By consciously directing our attention and, without judgment, encouraging a moment-to-moment awareness of thoughts, feelings, bodily sensations and the surrounding environment, we become a witness to the mind. And we can then enjoy the gift of the golden present. Mindfulness is no longer hidden in ancient spiritual texts, monasteries and ashrams, but is practiced by millions of people the world over. Join us as we awaken to the power of the present moment and the magic that enables us to make peace with who we are, right now, in this moment.
Harvard research shows that 47% of the time we're not present. We're not there. Our mind wanders in our heads, in our universes of thought, thinking about the past or the future, often worrying about the past or the future. But mindfulness brings us right in to our senses, right in to that present moment. And the senses begin to center us and to balance us and to make a magnificent difference in our focus, our clarity of mind, even to our immune system. That mindfulness practice can boost our immune system by up to 40%. 40%, yes. An amazing difference, yes, in our immune function. So people who have a regular mindfulness practice are ill less often. They go to doctors, they pay less visits to doctors. Their health and well-being functions brilliantly. It actually thickens the cortical structures in the brain, so it helps with dementia, etc. It helps to stave off those things, and you're half as likely to be depressed if you have a regular mindfulness practice too. Yes. So the side effects of it are only
multifold.
Good. Absolutely, yes. Only good. We get copious releases, tsunami waves of serotonin moving through our minds and our bodies. So it is my intention today to stretch those beautiful minds of yours, to touch those hearts, and to share with you some secrets of vitality and vibrance and health and wellness as well. And I think happiness matters. It isn't an airy-fairy thing. Happiness actually changes your neurochemistry. If it changes your neurochemistry, it changes every single cell in your body, literally in 1/100th of a second. Literally in 1/100th of a second. Would you like to see what I mean by that?
Definitely.
So who wants to come play at the front? Who wants to come play? Who wants to be my volunteer?
Okay.
Oh, come on. Face forward. Make a fist and be strong. And I'm just going to check your strong responses all. So I feel your strength and you feel mine, am I right? whilst being strong, I want you to say out loud, I can't, I can't, I can't, I can't, in a continuous dialogue.
I can't, 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 I can't.
What happened to you?
I can't, I can't, I can't, I can't, I can't, I can't, in a continuous dialogue.
You can stop now. And now I want you to look at the Queen again, not me, and to say out loud while being strong, I can, I can, I can, I can.
I can, 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 I can.
In 1/100th of 1 second, 100th of a second, a thought that is inside of someone's mind is released throughout their body as a chain of neuropeptides. Relax now. As a chain of neuropeptides.
I do exactly as I'm told.
Now, those neuropeptides enter within 1/100th of a second every single cell in your body. You are a community of 50 trillion cells. 50 trillion cells make up your physical form. And every thought that you think moves through, embraces, touches, penetrates every single one of the 50 trillion cells in 1/100th of a second. So your mind matters, and the mind is my domain. I'm going to ask you to go and sit next to your beautiful wife again now. And thank you.
Okay, so we know the benefits are immense and they affect people throughout their lives, whatever point in their life they decided to adopt this practice. How would you advise a newbie, someone who's never embarked upon this type of practice before? What techniques would you advise them to adopt?
Well, the easiest thing is to do a body scan. So to settle themselves in their bones and just bring their attention into their body and begin to focus on their breath.
And so because we're going full circle, we're going to do a body scan. So we haven't done that in 6 weeks. Expand your awareness to the space around you. Who you really are is beyond your thoughts, beyond your likes and dislikes, beyond the concepts of right and wrong. Who you really are is consciousness, awareness.
So it's been an 8-week course. Each session was an hour and a half with Kirsten, and it's on mindfulness. And it's basically learning how to be in the present. So also learning that your thoughts are things that pass, like waves. So even if you think you're having a negative thought about something, to bear in mind that it's not something that needs your constant and unending attention, because that's what brings people down, because they're thinking and overthinking the negative. But the same with positive as well. It's really to keep you grounded in what is now. So you're always living in the present moment, not thinking about there or what's behind, unless it's something useful. So Kirsten's been helping our group with this, and it's really been amazing, been very, very helpful.
So what we're doing today is we're looking at maintaining and deepening our understanding, and we're just going to try and come full circle. So I brought my rope again from our first session, and it's just coming back to remind us that the idea was to not pull on our difficulties or try and ignore them and jump over them, but to just be with whatever there is. And that when we show up to the difficulty, whether that's anger, frustration, sadness, whatever that may be, if we can just be with that and look closely what's actually going on, what happens is our knot tends to loosen and we can start to untangle things.
Kirsten, you've been teaching about mindfulness for many years now. How important would you say it is to have a practice of mindfulness? And what does it mean exactly, this practice?
Well, being mindful is very much being present, fully engaged, fully alive in your day-to-day life. To have a practice, I guess, only becomes important if you're very caught up and not very present and engaged. Because when we are very caught up in our mind, in our thoughts, what happens is that we tend to be more stressed, we tend to be more anxious, we tend to, find certain things more difficult.
Do you think we naturally know what it is like not to be caught up in our own minds?
Yes, we do. The thing is that we've got about 60 to 7,000 thoughts a day.
60 to 70,000.
60 to 70,000
Yes.
thoughts every day. And a lot of those thoughts we're not very aware of. So it's a bit like an iceberg. So the tip of the iceberg, the bit that you can see, are the thoughts that you're aware of. I'm going to go and make myself a cup of tea. I'm annoyed at my daughter, or this or that. But then the main part, the bottom of the iceberg, are all the thoughts that happen. They're there, but we're not fully aware of them.
What are we supposed to do with those thoughts that we're not aware of? Do we worry about them? Do we do something about them? Do we try and control them? Do we bring them to the forefront of our minds? Or do we just let them be?
There's nothing we have to do with our thoughts. There's nothing we can do with our thoughts. They just appear and they go again. But I think what's helpful is to note that there is a lot of thoughts, and it's helpful to notice that if you have a lot of mental clutter, I like to call it, is to be aware of that. Like, there is days where you just feel a bit on edge, a little bit overwhelmed, a little bit stressed, and you don't quite know why. I mean, you can find a reason for it, but it's just there. It's just being aware that, okay, I've just got a really busy mind today. Just understanding acknowledging it, helps us to not get caught in it, in the sense of there is something wrong, there's something I need to fix, there's something I need to change, because it's only natural to have a busy mind.
So what I'd like to do now is I'd like you all to write a letter to yourself, and I'm going to give you paper and an envelope. So you're going to write a letter to yourself about what you really want to remember, what you want to say to yourself in a couple of months' time about your experience here. I won't read the letter, so I want you to write the letter, put it in the envelope, put your address on the envelope and seal it.
As soon as you're born, you're breathing, and it becomes your sole companion throughout life until your very last breath.
True, yeah.
And then you just transform into some other energy. So breath is fundamental. Now we have to breathe all the time. When you lock your breath, it's only a few moments later and you're gasping for air. You realize then how important breath is. So why not learn to breathe beautifully? It's like reading. If you're going to read, why stutter? Why not learn to read and then read good quality stuff that you can grow from? With breath the same.
How can we learn to improve our breathing then?
Yes, if you use your arms, for example, I call this like the Indian goddesses with their arms everywhere, or the spider. There's 8, right? So the first inhalation, as you're opening your lungs, you want to roll your shoulders back a little without stiffness. So you inhale, you roll your shoulders, so you're opening the sternum, the rib cage, which is something that's quite compressed generally. On the out-breath, you soften, so you're creating movement in your back ribs. The second one, you bring it shoulder height. So already the rib cage is opening, if the rib cage opens, the lungs have freedom to expand. They're caged inside. You exhale. Always on the inhalation is the opening, the one that you take to the head height. It's lifting the lower ribs, so it's allowing the breath to go deep and wide. And the last one, you stretch up, because then everything opens and you're active. When you do a few rounds of that, that oxygen is entering your lungs, then entering your bloodstream. So you're accessing all areas as you move and breathe. This is why yoga goes hand in hand with breath technique, because you're using it with the body. Moving forwards, backwards, twisting, taking every part of your skeletal system through its natural range of motion, using the muscles to assist that skeletal system, and then the benefits come in. And the breath is the ideal tool.
Yes, and it's a tool for people of all ages.
All
the
ages.
child who has to go and sit an exam and is anxious about it, to someone who, in a different stage in their lives, it's really beneficial to all, isn't it?
It's beautiful because it's accessible to all. If we just take a moment to stop, not think, and breathe, and then think of how that breath is aiding you.
Yes.
And in the old-fashioned days, you used to say, stop and count to 10.
Yes.
Stop and breathe.
Mindfulness is, it's a buzzword at the moment, and particularly with psychologists, with modern psychology, and now even with people who are doing counselling. Mindfulness is beginning in schools, right from infancy, in simple ways, right through to high school. In some places, not many. I'm hoping that many more. But the roots of mindfulness are very deep and very ancient in the Buddhist tradition, in the yogic tradition, and this is really where we find the foundations. Modern mindfulness has come a lot from the Buddhist tradition, which is very much into examining through the mind. The yogic tradition is where the Buddhist tradition was born from even. It's even more ancient. So we could go right back to those roots, and yoga means to bring into balance. And mindfulness aims as well to bring us into greater conscious awareness so that we can not be ruled by our monkey mind, or as I call it, the mind train, that we can learn that we are not our thoughts. And they're not judging. You know, one of the most important keys in mindfulness is non-judgment and acceptance of what is without judging ourselves particularly, or others.
Any sound, it doesn't have to be called music, can bring you into a state of peace if you're present with it, and that's the mindfulness part. So if you're interested in sound, just listen.
With the curiosity of a child and without judgment and expectation. And that's the key that comes into this with mindfulness. No judgment, no expectation, no craving for just the nice sounds and pushing away the other sounds.
So in the 60s, for example, I think that the music came in as a big wake-up call for a lot of people, because it was part of that partly rebellious side to the old ways were just no more of that. We don't want any more of that. So music came in as a kind of awakening tool.
People were breaking free from repression and fitting into a square box, and they wanted to dance and be free, and the spirit came out in the 60s through music, didn't it, really?
And then it proceeded through the 70s, you know, with exploring the whole area of punk rock, and, you know, there was some pretty weird stuff going on. And I was lucky enough to be part of that. And for me, I had a very unhappy period when I was sent away to boarding school. And I became very repressed, because in this school I was at, they had particular times when you were allowed to talk and when you weren't. And I kept getting it wrong, and I kept getting punished for it. And I think, oh my God, I've got to shut up.
I'm sure you weren't the only one.
So I actually shut up. I literally went silent as often as I could, because I was afraid.
And you were afraid to express your emotions or your feelings or anything.
And then I became involved in the rock and roll scene and became I used to play in a band called Barefoot, and rock and roll, you know, long hair. But I became very disillusioned with that and went off travelling. And when I was just passing through an island in Greece, a fellow backpacker traveller had a flute, and he didn't really know how to play it, and he was short of money, so he wanted to sell it. So I bought one for £10. I gave him £10 for this flute when I was 19, I think. This was my tool then. I used to go up into the pine forests above the town on the island and just explore the instrument, listen to, and I remember the wind in the pines. Because I was so intent on, you know, getting the sound right, you know, trying to learn how to play this instrument, that all my attention was in this. And I just remember so clearly the wind in the pines and the feeling of enthusiasm at being able to express what I was feeling, finally.
Well, I think Terry's story exemplifies it, actually. You know, he talked about when he was young, he was very repressed, and he closed his vocal cords and was silent and unexpressive for a time until he found music. I think for many people, you know, one of the biggest things I come across is the feeling of I'm less than. You know, that, and this is where mindfulness offers us this deep wisdom of non-comparison, non-judgment. Be like a little child, be curious, be open, explore.
The beginning of freedom is the realization that you are not the thinker. When you start watching the thinker, a higher level of consciousness becomes activated. You begin to realize that there is a vast realm of intelligence beyond thought. You also realize that all the things that truly matter, beauty, love, creativity, joy, inner peace, arise from beyond the mind. You begin to awaken.